I'm happy to introduce our guest speaker. Janelle Stecklein is editor of the Oklahoma Voice, which is a online news outlet, relatively new here. It's a nonprofit, and you will see that a number of newspapers, including our own Stillwater News Press, will have free access to any of the articles they produce. Let me get my notes here. Janelle has been covering Oklahoma government since 2014 as CHNI's Capitol Bureau Chief. CHNI is the outfit that owns the Stillwater News Press and several other newspapers. Since graduating from college with degrees in journalism and political science, she has worked for publications of all sizes, including the Herald Banner in Greenville, Texas, the Amarillo Globe News, and the Salt Lake City Tribune. Janelle is particularly interested in examining how government policy decisions impact Oklahomans living outside the state's two largest cities. She resides in Oklahoma City with her husband and two children. Please join me in welcoming Janelle Stecklein.
Thank you, Larry. Let me lift my shirt up a little bit. Thanks for the introduction. Larry's daughter actually is Barbara, and she actually works for Oklahoma Voice. So small world, isn't it? And I have another employee named Nuria who graduated from OSU and speaks fondly of the university. So we'll just get right into it. So what is Oklahoma Voice? We are a nonprofit news outlet. We launched in August of 2023, and we office out of Oklahoma City, a couple blocks from the state capitol. Unlike other news outlets, we are specifically focused on news that comes out of our capital city and our capital. One of our missions is to fill the decline in state government reporters. You'll notice fewer and fewer papers typically allocate resources to state capitals, and that's an issue across the country. And we believe that the policies that come out of state government have a ripple effect across the entire state. And so our mission is to explore how decisions made in the state capitol, notice the lowercase, because that's not just necessarily the building, impact Oklahomans. Our news reporting is nonpartisan, though we do have a robust commentary section where that it is obviously has partisan commentary. That's what our site looks like. That was from yesterday. So what we are is we produce free content that's never behind a paywall. There's a lot of frustration. People really want to read stories or get their news, and they hit a paywall. And they don't have the money to pay to get behind the paywall, or feel like it's not a good value for them to pay for one story to get a subscription. We don't accept advertising. Our costs are covered by individual donors and grants. And all of our stories and columns are available for republishing, and we're lucky that we have some great partners across the state that run our content. And then we put out a daily newsletter 6 days a week, and we have social media accounts on Facebook and Blue Sky where we highlight all of our stories that we publish. A couple of our stories that I've really enjoyed reading recently that our reporters have written. We're the outlet that broke the news that Ryan Walters changed the test scoring criteria. He basically is grading our students' proficiency on a curve. That's the nicest way to put it, but didn't tell districts. So districts were making a lot of decisions based on the fact that they thought their students were actually more proficient than they were, but the scores are actually stagnant or maybe slightly worse. We've explored, we requested public records from the Oklahoma Department of Transportation, trying to figure out who's using this state airplane that's pictured here. It's owned by the taxpayers, maintained by ODOT, and we discovered that the governor is not being very transparent about why he's using the airplane. The First Lady has been taking a lot of flights without the governor. There's a state law that does require that you state the purpose and reveal the passengers. Many of the passengers' names are redacted, so we don't know who's on those airplanes. Like places like Branson, Nashville. There are some flights to Florida. Santa Fe, New Mexico, Durango, Colorado. There are some flights. Yes. They flew a couple times to Waco, where their daughter coincidentally was attending school. Yeah, and then initially he was flying quite a bit in Oklahoma. Now he's not flying on the plane very often to destinations in Oklahoma, is what the record showed. But we don't know. He's supposed to clearly state why he's using the plane, and we don't know why he went to some of these destinations. So we also put out a voter guide typically ahead of the elections. This year, this was our first major voter guide ahead of the November election. People clicked on this a ton to learn. They were particularly interested in the judicial retention elections. As we know, there was a lot of dark money that was flowing in there, a lot of mailers that were going out, commercials. Same with the Oklahoma Corporation Commissioner race. People were very, very interested in who the three candidates who are running. I was actually kind of surprised because people don't usually pay a lot of attention to those type of elections. So we also do some reporting on lawmakers. This is a story that we ran last week about a lawmaker taking on a government affairs manager role for the Freedom from Religion Foundation. Freedom Religion Foundation sends a lot of angry emails to local school districts and Ryan Walters, and they're involved in litigation to try to block Ryan Walters. That's our state superintendent's Bible mandate, and also the creation of the first publicly funded religious charter school. That's a mouthful. I have a hard time saying that. And then we cover budget hearings at the Capitol too. This is yesterday. Our head of the National Guard is asking that the legislature allocate $2.4 million to start a state militia. This would be in addition to our National Guard. Some people think it's a great idea. Other people are kind of like, why do we need a militia running around? And then we wrote a profile piece about the first Oklahoma Supreme Court justice in state history that was not retained. That was really interesting. I knew nothing about Yvonne Cogger's history or what she did in office. So we are an outshoot of State's Newsroom. That's the nation's largest state-focused nonprofit news organization. It is supported by grants and donations. It actually fundraises for our 4 core positions in our newsroom. Every newsroom has 4 reporters, and they have outlets in 39 states, including Kansas, Arkansas, Missouri, Colorado, and New Mexico. Any funding that we fundraise helps increase the type of content we can provide. Maybe it would allow us to add an extra person in our newsroom, pay for more columnists to write routine columns, pay for more freelance articles. It just bolsters our local content. And those are the states. The dark states are where we have States Newsroom has outlets. The lighter color states are where we have affiliates. Our affiliate in Texas is the Texas Tribune. We sometimes will run their stories, particularly when they're writing about what's going on at the border. Okay, so I realize you guys like trivia, so we have a pop quiz, and I'm not going to spin the wheel, and I'm not going to put anybody on the spot. If you know the answer, shout it out. These are going to be government officials. Representative Ranson, no cheating. Who knows who this is? That's right, Kyle Hilbert. He is the new Speaker of the Oklahoma House. He'll be starting his first official term in February when they gavel in. Who's this? Paxton, that's right. Lonnie Paxton, he's out of Tuttle. He is the new Senate President Pro Tem. He's going to be kind of setting the policy priorities for the Senate. Okay, we're getting a little trickier. Yes, good. 2 points for you, Josh West. Well, there you go. Okay, so I feel like maybe you should take a pass soon. I'm just kidding. Josh West is a Republican from Grove. He is the new majority floor leader. He decides his office is usually the one that's filled with most lobbyists because he sets the priorities on what bills get heard and when they get heard. Anybody know? Okay, go for it. That's it. Julie Daniels is the Senate minority or majority leader. Excuse me. She's out of Bartlesville, and she is Josh West's counterpart in the Senate. I don't know who that is, so I guess the answer is no. Oh, okay. Okay, I got you. Okay. This is Trey Caldwell. He is head of House Appropriations. He's going to be making a lot of the budgeting decisions. If money's being spent or you have a priority, like you need money for something, his office is the one you're going to want to be in. Oh, look at you guys. Well, there you go. Yeah, he's the Senate Appropriations head. He's the counterpart in the Senate. He's out of Perry. That's right, Cindy Munson, I heard that. She is the House Minority Leader. She leads the Democrats. That is accurate. That's right, Julia Kurt. She's a Democrat out of Oklahoma City, and she is the Senate Minority Leader. So yes, there are a lot of new faces in leadership this year. It's almost a total redo with the exception of Leader Munson. She's the only, I think, returning leader. Chuck Hall was sort of in that role, but very abridged time when the Senate went ahead and overhauled its budget process last year. Okay, so what am I watching this upcoming session? The legislative makeup. Like you just saw, there's a lot of new faces, but it's not just in leadership. It is across the legislature. When new people get elected, there's lots of new ideas that get thrown into the mix. So I'm very curious to see what those ideas look like and how they align with, the current leader's vision for the House and the Senate. Will the state Senate shift more to the right?
I thought they were already there.
More, yes, exactly. So the rumor is it was a dead heat for Senator Paxton when he got elected. He won by one vote behind a closed door with a closed door vote is what the scuttlebutt is in the Capitol. Had there been one more senator who voted the other way, Lonnie Paxton may not have been, the leader of the Senate. Paxton is considered to be more moderate, if depending on how you determine that. We now have a Freedom Caucus. It is an offshoot of the national congressional one that you've seen that has kind of wreaked a little bit of chaos on the national scheme in terms of the speakership race. And then there's state Freedom Caucuses in other states that have been a little bit disruptive. So I was going to be very curious to see how they factor into legislative efforts. Like I told you, we have new leadership. When new leadership comes in, there's new priorities. So it's going to be interesting to see. Governor Stitt is on his final 2 years in office. He's term limited in 2026, as you probably saw by A.G. Drummond announcing his worst kept secret that he's running for governor this week. So the governor is going to be looking to cement his legacy. What that is going to be, we don't know yet. I think we'll have a little more of an idea of what that looks like on February 3rd. And we've got the Trump effect. For the past 4 years, our leaders have spent their time bashing the Biden administration. I assume that federal bashing is going to go away starting Monday. We will see how closely aligned we are with Trump's agenda here in Oklahoma. Education is going to be a hot button issue. Bills are still coming out in droves, so we're still watching that. There's a lot of education legislation that's been filed on teacher pay raises, academic outcomes, menstrual products in schools, all sorts of different things like that. But I mean, the big question is going to be, how does the legislature work with Ryan Walters? Is this, is it going to be a lot of last year? There was a lot of kind of headbutting between leaders and Walters. There was even a subpoena issued at one point, or is this going to be like, a love fest between him and the lawmakers? I don't know yet. Cell phones in schools. Expect by the end of the year that there will be some sort of cell phone policy. I don't know what it's going to look like. I don't think anybody knows that yet. Academic outcomes are going to be a big talking point. Lawmakers have been pumping a lot of money into schools. They're unhappy that academic outcomes haven't miraculously improved. So we're going to see what the solutions are to improve that. We've messed up our graduation requirements by made a lot of tweaks. The U.S. Department of Education says one of our tracks, the students are no longer on track to graduate in a year or two. So we're going to have to figure out how to align those with federal requirements. And one of our favorite topics that our lawmakers love to argue about is corporal punishment in schools, particularly of disabled children. I don't know if we're going to have another debate like that, but if the past 2 years are any indication, I'm thinking there might be another debate over that. Immigration. Lawmakers are lining up behind President-elect Trump, to tackle the issue of undocumented immigrants in Oklahoma. So we've already got a federal lawsuit over a law that does impermissible occupation, which essentially allows us to force people who are in this state illegally to leave or incarcerate them. Operation Guardian proposals due any day now. This is where he wants to deport anybody who's incarcerated, deport them out of our country. So it's going to be interesting to see how he can align that with protecting crime victims' rights. Because if somebody's a victim of a crime, they usually want, the offender to have some skin in the game, face some consequences versus deportation. There's a proposal floating around to incarcerate undocumented immigrants for life, or give them the option to leave. And then over the summer, the governor had released the recommendations of an immigration task force. Are we going to see any legislation from that? I don't know. It's a wide range of recommendations to help people who are working towards citizenship make life a little bit easier for them. And then what impact will all these policies have on our state's businesses? We don't know what the policies are going to be yet, but businesses that rely on undocumented immigrants are probably going to feel a pinch. Economic issues. There's another push this year for income tax cuts. I'll be curious to see how that goes. Inflation is starting to become an issue again. It's starting to rise again. Is what people suspect. So I'll be curious to see that. We have a minimum wage ballot issue coming on our ballot in June 2026. Will lawmakers take the bull by the horns and have this conversation beforehand, or are they just going to let the voters decide whether to raise minimum wage to $15 an hour? Affordable housing continues to be an issue. Child care access is an issue, and it's been an issue for the state chamber for at least a term. State chamber is very influential, so I think we'll be having some child care access conversations. And then workforce shortages. How can we get more teachers into the workforce? How can we get more nurses to work in our hospitals? And then engineers as well. And that's our website if you want to read our stories, subscribe to our newsletter, or make a donation. So, and then I'm open to questions. Oh, thank you. It is very easy. For what? I don't judge. Yes. Sure, go for it, Mike.
I know you said that you're nonpartisan, so what steps does the Oklahoma Voice take to ensure the optics and ensure that they actually remain nonpartisan? I mean, we all have our own biases, everyone in the world, no matter how hard we try. What kind of mechanism do you guys do to kind of ensure that?
So in terms of we run a commentary section, and so people might think, hey, this reflects the views of Oklahoma Voice. The only person who deals with commentaries is me. I write my own commentary once a week. I don't do a ton of reporting anymore because it's hard to put your point out and then people think you're nonpartisan. But we talk to both sides of an issue. If somebody's proposing legislation, we'll find somebody who might have some concerns about it, so to put both points of view out as often as possible. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Do you have an affiliation with Oklahoma Watch?
Other than we're both nonprofits in Oklahoma, no. We were friendly with each other. We know each other. We believe that there's room in the ecosystem for both of us. Oklahoma Watch does a lot more like in-depth investigations. They spend a lot of time digging in. We produce daily quick hit content, and it's focused specifically on generally Oklahoma City news and state capital news. So yeah, and the same goes for the Frontier. That's, you know, that does something similar in Tulsa. Our models are different.
So, Janelle, two questions. First of all, can you disclose who some of your major donors are? I understand there's an endowment that pays your salaries and costs. That's number one. And the second question is, where do you get your reporters and how do you go about it? Not just Oklahoma Voice, but states news across the country.
So anybody who gives, I believe it's over $1,000, is listed on the State's Newsroom's website. You can go and you can look clearly who's our donor. Everybody gives certain amounts of money depending on where it comes from.
Big ones in there too, isn't Oklahoma Voice or I'm sorry, Hewlett Packard?
To be honest, I haven't looked at it in a while. Inasmuch, which is an Oklahoma City nonprofit or foundation, they paid for our intern last summer. We had an intern, actually, her name's Kennedy Thomason. She's the editor of the OSU student newspaper. So like locally, they've been the biggest foundation that has given to us. But nationally, you know, the money goes into a big pool of money, and then it gets distributed. I'm not involved in the fundraising from the national perspective. I only worry about what comes in locally. And most of our donors the other donors are mostly give small amounts of money, whatever they feel like they can afford to support our operations. They're below the $1,000 mark.
Where do you get your reporters?
So when we launched, I got some of my reporters from other outlets. You know, I found people who are really, really talented and encouraged them to take a chance on Oklahoma Voice. And we get our reporters same way anybody else does. We post a job opening and hope that people apply. But I also keep my eye on, particularly on student journalists that are coming up. And also on professional journalists, people who might be a good fit for our news operation in our model, and that have an interest in state government, because state government touches pretty much every facet of our lives. Sometimes people think it's just the Capitol, but it's, you know, it has tentacles everywhere. Sure.
I noticed one thing I think was missing from your list, tribal affairs.
So we do Native American reporting as well. We have a tab on there, I think, on the beginning that says Native America, and so we do some reporting on that. But ultimately, if we were to grow, my goal would be to hire somebody who could cover, I don't want to call rural Oklahoma, but like outside of the major metros, and that could focus on how legislation impacts those communities and do Indigenous affairs reporting as well. I'm typically the one who writes the most about it, just because that's expertise I bring from my job at CNHI. CNHI had a lot of papers that were headquartered in Native American communities, headquarters like Tahlequah, Ada, where tribes, you know, major tribes are. So we write some, but not all the time. We also occasionally republish KOSU. They are the NPR affiliate, based out of this area, and they do some of tribal. They've really been investing in tribal affairs reporting, so sometimes we'll pick up their stuff. It's like a mutual exchange, and we'll highlight their stuff on our website and in our newsletter.
So one more quick question.
Sure.
I assume you're a 501c3?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, any donations are tax deductible to the point they comply with federal law. So.
All right.